Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and today we're going to be looking at how we clean our fish tanks. So a number of you have asked how we maintain our fish tanks, how we keep them looking the way they do, which is most of the time they look okay. So we're going to do that today, and you're going to see that we have different methods for cleaning certain tanks depending on where they are in the fish room. And we'll take a look at the systems that we have. And Luke and Eli, my two boys, they get involved in this, and they're down here with me, 3 days a week, helping me maintain these fish tanks. So stay tuned. All right, everyone. So this is kind of what we do. This is the old side. Let's take a look at how we clean this. So you can see Eli over here with the 29. This is one we still do with a bucket and hose. He empties out about 30% of that water. The 20-gallon quarantine tank, there's just a couple plecos in there. He'll do about 10% of that. And then he'll come over with this 29, which is very lightly stocked. He'll do about 20% of that. We can see Luke over here, he's got the 75 going. We typically will gravel vac 1/2 of the larger tanks and just alternate every week. And so right now we're doing the right sides of the tanks. Next week we'll do the left sides. And so that each half side gets gravel vacked. That water, Luke, if you could go ahead and get that pump started so we don't flood our basement. This water goes into a bucket, 5-gallon bucket. And inside that 5-gallon bucket, we have a pump. And that pump then is connected to your standard garden hose. And we'll come over here, and that garden hose, that pump, will pump out everything into that floor drain that we have right here. So that's how we have to do the old side. That's going to change. I keep mentioning that we're going to get phase 2 going here, and that's going to start happening in the next few days. So Eli's got his bucket, and he puts as much water in there as he can carry, which is about half because he's a big, strong guy. And he'll do that a couple times to get the right amount of water out. So you can see now our pump is pumping the water out of the bucket. So again, the old side, what we do with these tanks is we'll do the 75 and the 150, usually about 30% of the water once a week, and that's enough to keep up. This 37 gets about 20% water change once a week. That's plenty. This 20 is going to be done with the bucket that Eli's got. That's going to get about 15 to 20%. The Oscar tank that you see here, because there's 3 Oscars in there, and they're going to be moving soon when we get phase 2 started, these 3 fish produce a decent amount of ammonia, so this tank gets a 50% water change once a week, and it works out well. And then, as I mentioned, the 29 gets about 25 to 30% every week. So that's the old side of the fish room, and we'll talk about what we do on the other side next. And when we wrap this video up, we'll talk a little bit about how we plan to make changes to this side of the fish room. All right, everybody, so one of the things I wanted to mention, we did a substrate video where I said this larger gravel tends to trap larger food particles, and I just wanted to show you that. Luke, if you can go to maybe the left where you haven't done just yet. You see it's a lot of stuff coming out of here. And guys, again, we gravel vac this every week, but you can see the larger chunks. Go ahead, Luke, get another big scoop so we can really get a good idea. You see that? We maintain these tanks, and the water looks great. And the water parameters are fine, but you can see how the larger gravel traps some larger food particles, and that makes it, I think, less desirable to have this larger gravel. Where if we come back over here to the 150, oh my gosh, we're about to overflow our bucket. Luke, can you pull your hose, please? One downside to having this particular pump with 2 of the hoses that we've got is it doesn't quite keep up with the amount of flow we get from doing 2 tanks at a time. This is a problem that will be solved. So I recommend if you do this, it works out great. There's no lifting buckets. Just make sure you have a pump that's powerful enough to get the water out of the bucket at the same rate, obviously, that you're putting it in. Otherwise, it doesn't work so well. But let me go ahead and show you what I was talking about here. This is going to be hard to do with one hand, and Luke's busy. So you can see much finer debris coming out of the gravel. And part of that is the fish, but another big part is the fact that this gravel is thinner, and so food particles will stay on the surface and the fish can eat that, as opposed to it sinking in the gravel in between those larger pieces of rock. So again, one of the advantages of having smaller gravel sizes. All right, everyone, so let's talk a little bit about what we do on this newer side of the fish room, and you'll get a better idea of what's happening. So I'm going to start way over here in the corner of our fish room, where you're going to see the very end of a PVC pipe. And that PVC runs the entire perimeter of our fish room. We can see here there is a little hole drilled in right there. And then we come around this way, and there's some stuff in the way, which I apologize for. But again, we have PVC with holes drilled in. And then as we come back around, it goes behind the 40s. Here we've got a couple more holes. It goes behind the 20s, down around on the left-hand side there around the wall. It makes a turn to the right. And finally, it goes into that floor drain, and that's the larger tube on the right-hand side. So this floor drain right now, we can see the garden hose. That's coming from the sump, or the bucket with the pump in there from the old side. This right here, that one on the right, that is the wastewater system that we built in on the newer side. And let's go ahead and come around to this side of the fish room. And so again, the PVC runs from here, goes all the way around the fish room, behind all these tanks, and eventually to the floor drain. Now, this is a great system because now what we can do is the same siphons that you saw us using, I'll show you this in a second, when we have to empty tanks, provided they're higher than the wastewater system, all we have to do is put the hose right into this hole, get the water going, no buckets, no pumps, it just goes right into the floor drain. And again, I will show you that next. Okay, Luke, go ahead and demonstrate how we get the tube in there. So I drilled that out with a drill bit to fit the hose. It was that simple. And now let me pan back and get out of the way because Luke's serious business here. This is the goldfish tank. We do 50% water changes on this tank at least twice a week. So he's going to go ahead. We don't need to gravel vac this because the goldfish do an awesome job. He just goes ahead and he's going to get this thing started. Once he does get it started, he can pretty much just leave it alone. So Luke, if it's started, let's go ahead and put it down like we normally do. And there you go, that easy. It's going right into the floor drain, no buckets, no real having to sit there and pay attention to anything. It's good having the smaller guys who can turn on the few remaining hang on the back filters we have in these tanks. Eli's just the right size. And then we've got a system. He goes back and he's got his little towel. And inevitably when you're changing water, things are going to drip. So he is getting all the water off the floor because that's his job, and he does an awesome job at it. So the next part is, how do we get water back in the tanks? And the first thing I want to say is, if you are thinking about having lots of tanks in an area like a fish room, you really need one of these, the utility sink. We had this put in when we got this new side of the fish room, and it has made life a lot easier, not having to bring in water from upstairs. So a couple things. One, if you are at all familiar with the Aqueon or Python systems, you will know that they have the connector to the sink. We had an Aqueon system, liked it, it worked for many years, but it finally broke. The little cheap plastic parts broke, so we built this. All the pieces came from Lowe's. I pretty much took my broken thing, went over there, matched up the pieces, so you basically have this little T, and then you've got a brass connector with a ball valve, and I was able to screw that right into an adapter that goes right into the fill hose. So the next part that we made to make life a little easier for us is this thing right here. Let me try to get that in there. And so again, this is 3/4 inch PVC. It's all silicone together. The hose itself is just clamped right into this adapter, and we can just hang this right in the tank as I'll show you. This little piece right here is not silicone just because I want to be able to turn it, but this thing costs just it was probably like $1. You know, this thing here, where if you had to buy that Aqueon system, the Python system, you might be looking at $40, $50, $60. This cost less than $10, I want to say, just to get the pieces from Lowe's. So let's go ahead, I'll show you how this thing hooks on. All right, so this is how this piece hooks on, just like this. And now I can get the water started. No one has to hold a hose. That was always a problem back in our early days. One of the boys or myself would kind of get distracted. Next thing you know, we're spraying water up at the top of the tank or on the floor. So this just hangs on there. You still have to keep an eye on it. It's not an automatic, it does not have an automatic shutoff or anything like that. So, you know, I've actually flooded a tank not too long ago because I forgot it was running. But that's how that hooks on. So there you have it. Water is running out. This tank will fill very quickly. That's the benefit of using the 3/4 inch hose with a little bit of a wider tubing. This, we emptied about 1/3, as you can see, and it's already filling pretty fast. Hey everyone, just wanted to give you another money-saving tip when changing water. So a lot of us buy water conditioner that's going to remove the chlorine, the chloramines, maybe even a little of ammonia. Most of the products on the market are a liquid-based product. This is Seachem Safe, and it removes chlorine, chloramines, and ammonia. And this is a powder. And so let me go ahead and open this for you. Now this is a lot. So I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see that, but it is a powder. And the largest fish tank that we have in our fish room is 150 gallons, and that's here, and we can see we're in the middle of our water changes. A 150 gallon tank requires just 1/8 of a tablespoon. So to do smaller volumes, it requires just a pinch. This bottle here, excuse me for the shadows, is 1 kilogram. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Nope, not gonna focus for us. But it's there we go, 1 kilogram bottle. This is gonna last us a very, very long time. Even with having about 30 tanks up and running, I could see this lasting quite a bit of time, and it's way cheaper than using the liquid stuff. So just an idea, if you are looking for Dechlorinator, definitely check this out. Maybe you don't need as much, but it will definitely last a longer period of time. All right, so we've got the tanks cleaned, so they were all emptied, 30%-ish, some 20. So we can see here on this side, we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks. We're done over here. And then we'll go to the other side. And in this side, we did the goldfish tank over there in the far back corner, along with the 2 lower 20s. So we were able to do 10 tanks, and with the system we have, which is by far from perfect, we were able to get 10 tanks done in about 40 minutes. So not too bad. All right, so here I got my 2 little helpers. They were the ones that did a lot of this work, as they always do. So guys, did you have fun?
Yeah!
Awesome. Well, thanks for the help. All right, everyone. So this is how we change water in our fish room, and we generally split it up into 3 days a week. We usually do something like a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday sort of thing, where we kind of split up the different tanks just to make it more manageable. And of course, some of those tanks have to get more than 1 water change per week, but the process doesn't take long. There are some things that we're going to be changing. And so first thing, on the old side, you saw that we used the bucket with the pump, which works pretty well. But as we go into phase 2, and I keep talking about phase 2, it's happening very soon. You'll start to see videos coming out where we add to the fish room, and the old side is where we're going to add tanks. But as we do that, we're going to change the way we do water changes on that side as well. And we'll build something very similar to what we have on the new side, only it's going to be a little bit easier to use, so we're not worrying about pumps or the strength of the pump and whether or not it can get it into the floor drain. So it should make things easier. Also, one of the things that we haven't done yet that we're considering is doing an auto water change system, When we first built this fish room, I just wasn't ready to do that. I wasn't ready to drill a bunch of tanks and to install, a water system that's going to have a little bit of pressurized water. So we haven't done that yet. I don't know if we're going to do that in the future, but it's something we are looking at. We just haven't done it currently. So I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you found this interesting and it's given you some ideas on what you can do for your tanks. If you've got multiple tanks, certainly one of the easiest things to do is to drain those tanks into a 5-gallon bucket. Buy yourself a pump that's strong enough to handle the flow going into the bucket and pump that right into a floor drain. If you've got a strong enough pump, you could even pump it right into a sink, which might make things a little bit easier for you. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.